beautiful Saturday morning, the 11th of April 2026, and you're welcome to this morning's edition of Saturday Special. I am Oluwafunbi Bello.
A special Saturday morning, welcoming you to the program. Of course, my name is Jadi Sola Ajibola, and of course, on this program this morning, we'll be taking you through stories that made the headline. I will also be serving you, of course, with the governor's activities, travelogue, and the interview segment, and we'll wrap it up with global update on the show this morning. Of course, I will be taking you through stories from the Saturday Tribune newspaper. And the major story there says, ADC crisis, Abuja court fixes April 4 for hearing. The story is on page 3. Mark others meet PRP leaders in Abuja. Nafiu Bala signs his resignation letter in my presence. That's coming from Nkem Nkadu. Right, the story is on page 3. On page 4, insecurity, police tactical squad on red alert in states. Ekiti, Benue, Nasarawa Plateau in focus. Right, my wife mocks me, says I can't perform in bed. 70-year-old man tells Ibadan court. On page 5, high fuel price. We should thank God we are luckier than other African countries. That's coming from President Tinubu. All right, 2027 elections, NBA accuses judges, lawyers of breaking Electoral Act provisions. The story is on page 6. INEC chairman denies X account, warns against fake social media post. Commission postponed voter revalidation till after 2027 polls. The story is on page 3 and 6. On page 4, gunmen kill family of 8 in Plateau. Mother, daughter murdered by kidnappers in Ondo. You can find the story on page 4. We'll take some stories inside the Saturday Tribune newspaper of this morning. UN Deputy Secretary General hails ceasefire in U.S.-Israel-Iran conflict. The story is there on page 3. We'll go to other stories. Army, a sensitization team engages Obovuare on youth recruitment. On page 5, U.S. action on Nigeria signal loss of faith in Tinubu. That's coming from ADC. Urges president to reset strategy on insecurity. Other stories there. Police recruitment. FCC commissioner warns against low turnout of shortlisted applicants. LG donates solar-powered borehole to Aware community. Tikumons General, other victim of terrorist attack in Borno, Niger. All right, we'll go to some other story there. On page 6. On page 6, you have Adeojo has revived Oyo water scheme, expanded supply across key cities. On page 8 and 25, reform is not complete until living condition of ordinary Nigerians improve. Professor Adeola Adenikinju, ex-president, Nigeria Economic Society, has said that. All right, ask your doctor page. You have stories like my challenge with fast food, how to protect my kidney, my problem with obesity, my fat little body, antibiotics with vitamins, noise and my health, between green and black tea, not crawling at 10 months. Wow. All right. On page 10, for Guru Maharji, devotees dock for alleged attack on Christians worshippers in adjoining land. Police confirm woman's abduction in Ibadan, intensify rescue efforts. All right, mercy for terrorists, death for their victims. On the Wheels and Women's page, April 2. What does that mean? You have a copy to know. All right, my wife mocks me, says I can't perform in bed. 70-year-old man tells court. I will return my 10,000 naira dowry. I want divorce. That's coming from the wife. Give us time to reconcile. That's coming from the husband. My wife disrespects me, refused to pray. That's according to the husband. He's a liar. The wife said, man jumped to his death to avoid being caught by lover's husband. My wife swore to kill me, stop cooking for me. Husband, he doesn't deserve such luxury. The wife stopped cooking for him. He should thank his star. If she planned to kill him and he's not cooking, it means that he will still live longer. All right, let's go to some other stories there this morning. On the entertainment page, Bam Bam Session debut on Aria Network, celebrity music legend. Yisao Ayinde Melody set to drop Owe Yoruba video. All right, we'll also see there Afowo slide to unveil Iyara celebrates 20 years of Afrocentric expression. All right, societal J celebrities turn up, I beg your pardon, in style as Toke Makinwa unveils body. Shima Oil celebrates women in Grand Lagos gathering. All right, trafficology, Eidero, and other open cage slavery. Nafi Bala signs his resignation letter in my presence. What Nigerian scholars university can learn from the U.S. counterpart, Daniel Unweze, chemical engineering, have the storyline. All right, let us show Ibadan's new Obas using new titles before Coronation Day. Oh, okay. Features of a forever marriage on the intimacy page. You can grab some things there. Kids and teen page, what we learn about leadership. Activity helps, but it's not cure for pre-eclampsia. That's under the mom and child page. On the exquisite style, tote bags to the rescue. Simple style, essential. All right, letters, okay, I've taken that. Bandit attacking opposition parties and taking over. We will continue to resist them. That's coming from Solomon Belong. All right, Turkish Super League Ndidi to miss rest season on the 17 World Cup qualifier. Busari invites the six to camp. ORC highlights importance of cycling. Bassi gets green lights to face Liverpool. National Para Games, Edo rewards medalist. Injury setback for Onochu. And of course, on the back page, you have Amupitas. Past tweet shows an APC sympathizer. All right, those are the stories from the Saturday Tribune. Over to you, for me.
All right, I have the Nation newspaper here. On the front page, we have stories on page 4. It says, ADC crisis. Mark, faction targets PRP. Others amidst uncertainty. The writer says, FHC decides leaders' fates Monday. Here's Gombe's suit Tuesday. Confusion shrouds national convention slated for April 14. Nigeria will achieve stable electricity to power growth, and that's coming from the president. Commissioned IPP, roads, bridges in Bayelsa, and that story is on page 6. And on page 5, INEC postpones voters' revalidation till after 2027 elections. Amupiton disowns X accounts. Moving on to page 6. My ex-deputy plotted to topple me, says Kano governor. Terrorism, court convicts 386 in 4-day Abuja trial. Ex-senatorial candidate bags 10-year jail for selling fuel to Boko Haram members. And that story is on page 3. I cried in my room when Oni's wives were deserting him. And that's coming from the elder sister. That story is on page 25. And lastly, on the front page of the Nation newspaper, we have a story on page 11. Deaf autistic girls battle unwanted pregnancies as randy men go berserk. That's all on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning. Taking some inside stories, starting with page 2. How 75-year-old grandfather raped impregnated 14-year-old granddaughter in Niger. I'm not a king, Eze Ndigbo apologizes after South Africa violence. 23-year-old allegedly hacks mother to death in Ondo community. I had no accommodation for 13 months, says Unical best graduating student. Nigerian pilgrims rescued by NDLEA in Saudi visit headquarters in Abuja. All stories on page 2. Nigerian Immigration Service Controller General suspends controllers, probes alleged extortion at Seme border. Troops kill 10 terrorists, recover arms in Plateau, 8 killed in fresh Plateau attack. Here we have false cancer claim, why we petitioned anti-graft security agencies, and that's coming from the Nigerian Cancer Society, NCS. Terrorists kill 5 forest guards in Kwara. Dozens of bandits neutralized. Abdul Razak constitutes security committee. And that story is on page 3. ADC crisis, Mark faction targets PRP. Others amidst uncertainty. And that story is on page 4. And on page 5, Nigeria, UN deepening partnership on women, youth empowerment. Youth are backbone of national transformation, and that's coming from the Vice President, Shettima. Tinubu celebrates Dangote's industrial impact on birthday. Federal government launches digital platform to connect policymakers with entrepreneurs. Our story is on page 5. And moving on to page 12. Perpetrators vanish after deflowering, impregnating vulnerable teens. And that's on page 12. Report alleging wedding cancellation over groom support for Tinubu unsettles Jigawa community. Bride's father threatens legal action, says no dispute whatsoever. Wordhead denies incident, launches manhunt for author of misleading story. Community Development Association Chair differs, says matter settled between groom, father-in-law before wedding. That's a very interesting story. That's on page 13. Moving on to page 29. Police launch massive crackdown on crime across Delta. Clear Asaba hideouts. Nigeria will achieve stable electricity to power growth, and that's coming from the president. Please deploy security across JAMB examination centers in Imo. And here we have Wike announces Rivers Coalition's 500 million naira support for late Senator Mpigi's family, says his family must not be abandoned. And that's all stories on page 29. Taking some sports stories now. We have Falcons captain Ajibade blast NFF over poor planning, lack of friendlies. That's all on page 31. Bells University VC, others back Sports Excellence Award. And here we have season over for injured Ndidi. Okoye targets personal record against AC Milan. And lastly, we have Gusso Chell, please resign. And that's all we have on the newspaper review this morning. Yes, there will be no governor's activities today, but we have a travelogue and we'll be going to Ibadan, Warlords. Please stay with us.
The exploits of the Ibadan warlords in the various wars across Yoruba land is a confirmation of the bravery and brilliance of progenitors of Ibadan, especially when it comes to prosecution of wars. Ibadan played major roles in ensuring that all attempts to attack or invade Yoruba territory were repelled and Yoruba land is victorious. After the fall of Ilorin to the Fulanis and collapse of the Oyo Empire, all other important events in Yoruba land revolved around Ibadan, which was the strongest power that emerged. At a point in the history of Ibadan land, performance in battle became the criterion for ascendancy to the chieftaincy hierarchy. The situation which attracted to Ibadan many brave and talented warriors who had distinguished themselves in the defense of the fallen Oyo Empire. Some of the warlords of Ibadan included Basharun Ogunmola, the son of Orisaguna from Fesu compound in Iwo. He was very short in stature, but the devil to the enemies at the war front. He was a gallant soldier who moved from Fesu to Isheyin before final relocation to Ibadan to form alliance with Iba Oluyole. He won many wars for Ibadan, especially the Ijaye War. Among the war generals of Ibadan was Balogun Ibikunle. Ibikunle hailed from Ijado near Ogbomoso. He came to Ibadan during the reign of Baale Maye Okunade. Based on his strength and valor, Balogun Ibikunle was nicknamed Kiniun Onibudo. Balogun Ibikunle was second to none in the battlefield. He was courageous and fought for several years for Ibadan land. Ibikunle built a protective wall called Odi Ibikunle around Ibadan in 1858. Another prominent Ibadan son who displayed gallantry at the war front was Balogun Oderinlo. Oderinlo was the Balogun of Ibadan land and reigned around 1850. Oderinlo rose to prominence as one of the chiefs who played an active role in the rebellion against Lakanle before Lakanle's eventual suicide. Oderinlo was the Balogun who led the Ibadan troops to fight in the Second Ibadan-Ilorin War at Oshogbo, a war that Ibadan won comprehensively. The army of Ibadan equally attacked Ilesha to rescue Oshogbo. From that war, the Ibadan army ventured into Ekiti for the release of Otun, which was attacked by Ilorin army. They also fought in Ara to reinstate the Alara, who was then having problems with his people. Balogun Oderinlo was among the 6 generals who plotted against Oluyole. At the time Basharun Oluyole died, Balogun Oderinlo was planning to go on a war to Okeogun. So, when the entire council of Ibadan invited Oderinlo to become the Baale, he declined, saying he wanted to win that war first. Historians speculate that he wanted to gather the wealth from the war to boost his claim to the rulership of Ibadan at the time. Balogun Oderinlo went to the war and came back. He won the war and gathered enough loot and slaves to bring back to Ibadan. However, few months after his return to Ibadan from Okeogun, as he was said to be announced as Baale of Ibadan, Balogun Oderinlo died mysteriously. To this day, nobody knows how Balogun Oderinlo died, but the sudden and mysterious nature of his death has led many to speculate that he may have been poisoned. After his demise, Baale Opeyagbe replaced him on the throne of Ibadan. The Ekefa Olubadan of Ibadan land, Senior Chief Lekan Alabi, who is also the first cultural ambassador, National Museum and Monuments, Ile-Ife, noted that Ibadan warlords can best be described as the major savior of Yoruba land, especially during the Fulani invasion.
The present Ibadan is the third Ibadan that grew out of a settlement at about 1820, 1825, and it started as a military camp following the fall of the old Oyo Empire, which was somewhere near in present-day Niger State. As a result of the flock of Yorubas from the Oyo Empire, the Ibadan army rose up as a defender of Yoruba land. Yoruba stock from all Yoruba land started hearing about the new military camp called Ebaudo, which today is shortened to Ibadan. The popular generals Ibikunle, Ogunmola, Ojo, Suberu Ajengbe. So they went out to fight enemies or any opponent, anybody, any group that wanted to stall the growth, peace, unity of the Yoruba land. The most famous is the Jalumi War. As a result of the treachery of Afonja, Are Ona Kakanfo of Yoruba land, he had become so powerful and wanted to have the crown or the position of the Alaafin of Oyo to his being Are Ona Kakanfo. So Afonja was holding forth at Ilorin on behalf of Alaafin. But Afonja became too ambitious and wanted to take over the stool of Alaafin. He thereafter sought in his own mind the help, spiritual help of a Fulani Malam called Alimi. So he invited Alimi to Ilorin to be praying for him so that he will overcome Alafin. But rather than do that, Alimi was doing incantations that will bring down Afonja, unknown to Afonja. And he was inviting mercenaries, recruits from Sokoto. So they amassed in Afonja Palace and struck one night, killing Afonja, killing his son, and demolishing his post as a Aron Kakanfo. Then the jihadists, the Fulani jihadists, took over Ilorin. So having captured Ilorin by deception and the over-ambition of the Aron Kakanfo, they now moved gradually towards Osogbo, passing through Ofa. It was then the Ataoja of Osogbo sent for help to Ibadan. And Ibalu now mobilized his generals, the ones I've mentioned, Ibikunle, Ogumola, Ojo, to go and face the jihadists in Osogbo. And that's how Ibadan Army not only defeated the jihadists, but drove them outside the walls of Ofa.
Are Obadoke Latosa Asubiaro was another warrior produced in Ibadan land. He was born at Ilora around 1820. He joined the Ibadan army through Ogumola and rose to become Otunbalogun and later became the Generalissimo of Yoruba Empire, Are Ona Kakanfo. Are Latosa personally took over the command of the Ekiti-Parappa War in 1880. Are Latosa died quietly in an Ibadan camp in 1885. Ibadan led the battle during the Jalumi War, Ekiti-Parappa, Koriji War, Ijaye War, Fulani Jihad War, and other internal wars prosecuted by the Ibadan warlords. One of the great-grandsons of Latosa, Chief Mabinu Ori Adigboyega, who has also assumed the title of Are Latosa, spoke about the exploit of his great-grandfather in the war front.
Mohammed Obadoke Are Latosa Ashibiaro Agedegudu. He was the first African man to combine civil and military leadership. He was the Olubadan of Ibadan, at the same time the war generalissimo of the Yoruba from 1871 to 1885. We have a lot of people that knows about war. We never lose any war in Ibadan. Even the Ijebu War, the Egba War, and the Ekiti Wars, and the Kurumi Wars, we always win. In short, if you are not a warrior, you are nothing in Ibadan. And let me now talk about Kiriji War, which was fought by my forefather. This is Ilesha. This is Ekiti. And my father went straight in between them, and he sat down there, and he won the war. The Ijeshas was at the back, and the Ekiti were at the front, and he was at Igbajo in the middle of the war. That's why he pitched his tents, and he won the war.
A professor of history from the Premier University Ibadan, Professor Olutayo Adeshina, noted that the power wielded by Ibadan warlords later made them to be tyrannical, which also led to Ekiti-Parappa War in rebellious to Ibadan tyrannical attitude.
Ibadan became a place where these generals congregated, and so at the end of the day, at the most crucial period in Yoruba history, they proved very helpful and very significant. And the most significant of it all was the one where Balogun Oderinlo was at the head of the Ibadan army that stopped the Fulani invasion at the Battle of Osogbo in 1840. And so it's very significant that Ibadan saved Yoruba land from the scourge of these people, and so we have had a long history of these generals. They had gone to Ekiti to to take control of that region, and we also have to talk about Efunshito Aningura, who actually was behind them, provisioning them. She even had her own army, always lending support to the Ibadan army at any battle site. So Ibadan was famous for all these war generals. But one significant thing about them was that they were people who were cerebral, profound people, full of strategies and tactics. They weren't going to go into battle blindly. They knew what they were doing. Yeah. So there is no way you can talk about Yoruba history without talking about Ibadan history. But at some point, Ibadan also became tyrannical, like all powerful countries, all powerful people. Ibadan also became tyrannical. And so when it came to the Ekiti experience, Ibadan became very tyrannical. Ibadan became very powerful, and so started to expand her power and influence. And so in conquering Ekiti land, she began to send those we call the Ajeles to rule over the Ekitis. And so the Ajeles also became tyrannical, taking wives, levying money arbitrarily, and being generally unruly. That was what caused the Ekiti Parappa War. To say, no, Ibadan must go. So no matter how strong you are not likely to be totally benevolent when it comes to power and the use of power. The use of power comes with the abuse of power.
No matter how, Ibadan will continue to be relevant in the scheme of things in Yoruba land, owing to the high level of bravery and strategy displayed at the war front by the Ibadan warlords. Abiodun Akinkunle reporting for Saturday Special.
When malaria knocks you down, you can be sure parasites are having a party in your system.
Welcome to our new kingdom, guys!
Comel, an effective weapon against malaria.
Coleman!
Attacking the parasite army directly to give you express relief and get you back on your feet effectively. Comel on. Malaria gone.
Welcome back. It's still Saturday Special on the Broadcasting Corporation of your state. For me, over to you.
All right. This morning, we will be talking about autism, addressing inclusivity and care needs. Of course, April 2nd is the month or the day observed globally to be Autism Awareness Day. But the month of April generally is the month of autism, and it was established by the United Nations. Its aim is to increase understanding and support for people with autism. This morning, we'll be talking about what autism is, the misconceptions, people living with autism, how can they live? Can they live like every other person that is not on the spectrum? Those are conversations we will be having. And of course, we have experts. We also have a parent here in the studio with us this morning. We have Dr. Yetunde Adeniyi. She's the Director, Center for Development, Learning and Care. Good morning, Doctor. It's good to have you. And we also have Mrs. Mobolaji Idowu, a parent of a child with autism. Good morning. It's good to have you.
You're welcome.
Yes, let's
Thank
start
you.
with Doctor. When we talk about autism, let's understand what is autism.
All right, thank you very much. So autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. What that means is that it basically affects the development of children that are affected. So there are key areas that are affected when it comes to the development of the children. So the first thing to note is that it starts very early in life, almost immediately when the child is born. We expect them to achieve certain milestones at certain times. So, but when children have autism, we'll start to notice that they might have delay with their speech. So they have speech delay in terms of being able to communicate, being able to converse. At about 18, 2 years, children start to join words together. They call mommy, daddy, they call their siblings. But this is affected when children have autism, so they have poor speech development. Some of them have poor social interaction. What that means is that they prefer their own company. They enjoy themselves. So they not want to interact with other people, with their siblings, with family members. If you take them out for a party, they rather just want to be by themselves. They also have difficulties understanding a lot of cues, social cues. If you give eye contact to some children at a certain age, you will understand what to say. Even if you nod your head or you just move it sideways, they know that, oh, mom is unhappy with this. Many children with autism will have difficulties being able to interpret that. They might have what we call repetitive behaviors. They have certain things that they love to do again and again and again and again. Some of them would flap their hands. They can spin on a spot. They sometimes might just sit and rock back and forth. They might also they might be rigid with their routines. So they want things to be done in a particular order. So they want it to be that way, and that's how they function well. So when you interrupt their routines, there might be some resistance from them. Apart from these three major symptoms that I mentioned, some of them might have other things, like they might have some self-injurious behavior. So when they start to get older and they cannot express themselves, they can start to have a lot of tantrums or meltdowns, and they can take that on themselves. Some of them will pinch themselves or bite themselves. They might bite other people or pinch other people. They might have difficulties with learning, because of the pace by which classrooms teach and the method by which we use in classrooms. It might be difficult for them to follow through with what is being taught. So these are some of the things that we'll look out for when we are talking about autism. Some of them might have poor eye contact. When they're talking to people, they rather just look elsewhere or look past you. They don't maintain eye contact. So these are some of the things that would indicate that a child has autism.
When we want to diagnose a child, an autistic child, is it from birth? Because I have seen, someone coming out, a 30-something-year-old person coming out to say, who grew to all of us, we saw this person grew up just like every other person. But the person is coming out to say, I've been diagnosed with autism.
At 32.
So, yes. So, is it a diagnosis that comes at birth? Is it also something that comes later on, as a person develops, grows?
So it's a development, it's a disorder of development. And what that means is that it starts very early. So even though it might be difficult to say at birth, because children with autism, many of them, like 95% of them, are physically healthy. When you look at them, you can't tell that there's a problem. So it might be difficult to tell at birth, unlike disorders like Down syndrome and some other ones. But for autism, at birth, it might be difficult. But what we expect them to achieve, like at 6 months, 7 months, babies will give you eye contact. That might be difficult when children have autism. And it can start to show at that early. But it becomes very obvious when it is time for them to start speaking, start interacting with people, start learning in classrooms, and then it becomes difficult. So if someone is being diagnosed at 32, most likely the history will go back to when they were younger. Nobody wakes up at 32 and then have autism. That's not the kind of disorder it is. It is something that progressively happen over time. And then some children actually, what the parents will tell you that they develop well or normally until about 18 months or 2 years. In fact, some of them start to speak, gradually, and then at some point, they just realize that they're not speaking anymore. Maybe that's what you will get, but not a 32-year-old who has grown normally, then developing autism. That's not the way it is.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Doctor, I still want us to stay with conversations on you, and then we'll come to, of course, Mrs. Adeni shortly.
Mrs. Sido.
Sorry, Mrs. Sido. Dr. Adeni, let's look at the cause of autism. What usually causes autism?
Okay, so as of today, there's no single thing that has been identified to be the cause. Otherwise, we'll have medications, for it. But we've realized that there's some factors that have been associated with it. One of it is that it runs in families. It could be inherited. It might be at different degrees. So you might have someone in the family who has had a few symptoms that are related to autism. So what that means is that children in that family have higher risk of having autism. If you have a twin, one of the twins has autism, the likelihood that the other one will have is very high. So it runs in families. We've also realized that when children or babies have difficult period during pregnancy or during delivery process, they might have autism. Things like, so in pregnancy, when there are when mothers are exposed to a lot of environmental toxins, things like lead and mercury have been implicated when it comes to autism. But largely, we've seen that even all of this, sometimes when a child has autism, you would search everywhere, you ask about family history, you look at the pregnancy and delivery, everything seems to have happened normally. And we couldn't trace it to anybody in the family. So all these factors I'm saying are just things that we've seen that sometimes it happens in there, but there is no singular cause. There are lots of research and investigations going on to be able to determine, is that something in their brain? Is that something in the blood? Is that something, there's none that's conclusive. There are, things that have been found, but they are not conclusive yet. Yeah.
Doctor, thank you very much. Let me come to Mrs. Zido. Mrs. Zido, it's good to have you on the program.
Same here. Thank you.
Yes. So let's look at your view, as an experienced parent about autism. What would you say about it first? Before you start sharing some of your experiences and how you discovered with us.
It's something no one prays for. As much as having a child is a gift from God, you obviously want smooth parenting. So having to, realize that your child isn't meeting certain milestones, it's obviously, it hits you with a big disappointment. I just wanted to be a mom and, raise amazing kids. And I'm here. My son is amazing, to be honest. But then, it comes with a bit of extra work as a parent. So.
Okay, so let's go to your experience. At what point did you discover that your son, your amazing son, had this disorder?
So my son turns 10 this year. So It's been a journey.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And he wasn't born in Nigeria. So I moved to Nigeria. Autism made me move to Nigeria. He was born in Sweden. I lived there. We were raising them there. And I think, so here's it, similar to the narrative she gave, he sort of hit certain milestones. I didn't think not giving eye contact was a thing we observed at all. So he meant that he didn't raise concern. And then he had said dada, mama, he started saying dada from like 6 months. Everything was fine. He walked. Pregnancy was smooth. I had 2 hours delivery. Entire labor and delivery was within 2 hours. I was discharged the same day. Everything was fine. So about 1 year old, he wasn't talking. He regressed. So the communication or the talking was not even there anymore. And then he would I thought he was deaf because you would call his name and he wouldn't respond. Reflex, even if a child hears a name that isn't his, you're supposed to move in a certain direction, but he wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't flinch at all. So I remember there was a day I had played the regular Cocoa Melon sound and I'd put it on a low tone and I'd hid it somewhere and he found it. And then again, I put it on a high tone and I'd hid it and he found it. So obviously it wasn't deaf.
It wasn't deaf.
Exactly. It's something called selective mutism, so which means that his brain wasn't tuned to understand and answer his name. So from the house, we already knew that there was a problem. Then school had to say that he was not interested in, playing with his classmates.
At what age?
This was, so in Sweden, kids start school at 1 year old. So this was between 1 and 1.5, or 2 at the most. So he wasn't ready for social interaction. He'd rather stay with himself and play, align his toys in a certain way. And, unfortunately, the school had to say that there's something wrong. You should get him checked. So that's how the journey began. We had gone to the hospital, and I remember the nurse had given me a document to tick yes or no. And almost everything had no, no, no. Does he go out? When you go out and you say, oh, that's a bird flying, does he move in the direction of your voice, your hand, or the bird? And of course, that's a no, because he's not even aware that I'm saying something or trying to call his attention to something. So, everything had no, no, no. And I remembered she had said, we may be looking at autism. Now, for me, I didn't know what autism meant. I don't have a reason to. There's no one in the family, or I don't even have friends who had kids on the spectrum. So I remember what I said was, oh no, it's not drooling, because the definition or the understanding of autism I had was Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. I just said, oh, it's not drooling, it's not autistic, it can be. And she had said, oh, autistic kids don't drool, it doesn't have a face. So yeah, that's how the journey started.
Wow. Thank you very much for sharing that early experience with us.
Thank you.
You're strong, and you continue to be strong, don't worry.
Thank you.
Let me quickly go back to Doctor. Doctor, I wrote down something. I said, Down syndrome and autism. And she just mentioned it. Now, what's the difference between Down syndrome and autism? Because since we started this conversation, I've been trying to roll my brain to fix many things, and I can't fix it. But I trust you will fix it.
Okay, thank you. So they are totally different disorders. So we've said a bit about autism. Now, Down syndrome is a chromosomal disorder. What that means is that it is a disorder that happened the very first day that child is being formed. So something will go wrong at the formation of the very first day that things are being laid down for that baby. So it comes with lots of physical features. When you see, when a baby is coming out of the mother's vagina, you are looking at a Down syndrome child. You can tell at that moment that this child has, because all the features are there. If you see like 10, 15, 20 of them, you think they are from the same parent. So they carry the same facial features. So that's for Down syndrome. But autism, like I said, you see, our son is a very handsome boy. You won't, except somebody says this is, you will not be able to tell. So it doesn't come with a face or with a physical appearance, any physical feature, no. So they are totally different disorders. And Down syndrome, it's sometimes you can, like I said, you tell from birth, but then when they start to develop, it's obvious that this child has a major developmental problem. They are very floppy. They are a child, can sit and put a leg around her neck because they are so soft, So they are walking, standing is very slow because of that, the way that their bones and everything is formed. So there are two different disorders. They are not the same at all.
But for Down syndrome, can it be detected before birth?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's a little bit advanced than autism in terms of care and diagnosis. So if you take a little bit of the fluid from the mother's womb, especially when there have been suspicions of maybe not, and you take it to the lab, we already know the fundamental problem. So you just go do some genetic tests and look at the formation of those things. Once it's not a difficult test to do at all. So it's been done. But the thing is that there has to be a suspicion to say maybe not. So sometimes when there are factors that can say that this child might have Down syndrome. For example, if you look at the age of the mother, usually when women are above 40 and they are pregnant, the tendency is higher among those categories. So people can do it. Sometimes when they start to do scan and they see, because like I said, I told you they have features. Sometimes they might have small head, some other features that can point to the fact that this child might have Down syndrome. So they take a bit of the fluid and they go test, and you can tell.
Okay, so you've talked about testing during pregnancies, and you've talked about women above 40. Now, so for every woman who gets pregnant at over 40, should run that test to ascertain the situation? Or what informs
so ordinarily it's not harmful to do for every woman over 40, but then because the test is not cheap, and it's not a test that you just enter any lab and do. It's not something that is common. So
designated labs for it.
So designated lab, because of the reagent, because of the expertise that is required. So it might be difficult to say every woman above 40 should do it. I mean, it's not harmful, like I said, just a little bit of the fluid that is needed. But because of the cost and all those other logistics, maybe not. It's not something that would...
But if you look at the cost and the adverse effect,
yes.
I think the testing, no matter how expensive it might
be, it's fine.
To reduce the stress of what the woman will go through in life.
I know, but I want to also tell you that the fact that a woman has been informed that her child has Down syndrome doesn't mean that they're ready to get rid of that baby. Some of them will still say, it's my baby. I want to go on with the pregnancy. Don't understand what it means. With all the understanding. With all explanation.
Mom who's been trying to have a child
for several years.
Maybe,
you just want to have that baby.
Maybe we should also talk.
Because...
Please go ahead.
Yes, because... So, the argument is that because a child has a disability or has a Down syndrome, does not mean that it's not a child, or it's not going to have, or is not going to grow up to be useful for the society. So we don't want to take that, we don't want to assume and conclude at that level. Some families will say, I want to go ahead, but majority of people that I've known will still want to say, I want to see this baby. I want to feel this baby. I want to see.
Maybe we should talk about the challenges faced by these children with the developmental...
The challenges, yes. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's believed that both Down syndrome and autism are spiritual. Especially in our setting.
And those are misconceptions. Maybe misconceptions.
Yeah,
we should look at the misconceptions.
It is believed, it's not just autism and Down syndrome. Most disorders who we can't readily explain. For instance, people will not say that malaria fever is spiritual. Most people will not say, because we have a lab result. We can feel when someone has fever. We can say, okay, go and buy anti-malaria, and they use, and then they are fine. But most other disorders, people will say it is spiritual, including things like cancer, like diabetes, things like are chronic. Even despite that people are taking medication and all that, it might still be there. So spiritual interpretation of disorders is common. I mean, as a practitioner, I'm very familiar with it, and I'm used to it, because that's usually the very first understanding that people will have about a disorder. And that is why the first place they go to is to their pastor. It is fine, that's what they think it is. So they go look for someone to pray for the child, for holy water, for different things, deliverance, and then sometimes it's the pastor that will advise, okay, we've done this, can you please take this child to go and see a doctor? And then we'll take it from there. So understanding of illnesses in terms of what is responsible for it, it's something that it's not, medical is not something that comes first when it comes to autism, Down syndrome, intellectual disability, all those disorders that you can't say, okay, so let's take a blood sample and take it to the lab. That we are not at that level yet for them. So we are just explaining and saying, okay, so many people find it difficult to wrap their head around. If I'm looking at this child, he's fine, he's growing, there's nothing wrong with the legs, with the mouth. Some of the children with autism will not want to feed themselves. And there's no problem with their fingers. They are fine. They just don't want to eat by themselves. They don't want to go to the bathroom. They pee on themselves, they poo on themselves. So people will be wondering, this looks like some kind of a spiritual attack to me. So I feel that one of the things that we are going to be doing, or this one program like this will do, is to continue to talk to people, to create awareness, to say these things are medical. There are explanations for them. They are not spiritual, you know, as it were. So I think we should just continue with the conversation.
I want to come to Mrs. Idowu now. When you got the diagnosis of your son being autistic, what was your reaction like?
I went spiritual.
You went spiritual.
Oh. But that's the truth.
Yeah,
Nobody, it's not an acceptance
truth.
anyone prepares. Nothing prepares you for this. So you can't, it's just like a patient getting a cancer diagnosis and say, oh, well, thank God. Nobody wishes it on anyone, you know. So obviously when he came, as I said earlier, the nurse had said it and I said, God forbid, it can't work. And I lived in denial for a whole year. So I went away, wishing it away, praying it away, talking to my parents, talking to, you know, religious leaders who could help. Well, I didn't go that deep, to be honest. But, you know, of course, I personally would pray about it. I prayed, you know, the entire family prayed. And because, again, he doesn't have a face, so he further deceives you, not knowing, oh, has he gone? Is he still there? But by the time your child stares at you in the face, and I think the defining fact of face was coming to Nigeria on a holiday and seeing children of his age hit milestones differently.
And you mentioned earlier it made you return to Nigeria.
Yes.
You left Sweden because of your son.
Yes.
Was it because you didn't have enough care, or was it because of inclusion? You felt he wasn't included, the inclusion wasn't there for him with other children?
Honestly, I think people would crucify me for this, but I think abroad is overrated when it comes to things like this. See, it takes a village to raise your child, to raise a child, even a child who doesn't have any developmental delay. Now, talking about developmental delay, that village is here for you. It's either in Nigeria, it's either you see it. See, so now I said I lived in denial for a whole year. Then it was time to face the reality, and the first step was to get a diagnosis, right? And it took a whole year. That was the standard then. Now it takes 2.5 years. So you tell the local hospital that you're assigned to that I'm ready to go for a diagnosis, and they send your child's referral to the right hospital, and it will take a whole year because there are kids on the queue. What? Back then, this was 2019. Yes, 2019, 2020, and it took a whole year. Now it takes 2.5 to 3 years. No jokes.
Just to get a diagnosis.
Just to get a diagnosis. Now, the journey starts after the diagnosis. So we finally got the diagnosis, and the next stage was to get something called ABA therapy. It's called Applied Behavioral Therapy. Now, we lived in a city called Gothenburg. It's the second biggest city in Sweden, which means that there are more children on the spectrum because it's a bigger city. It takes 2.5 years before we got before we got on to the stage of the ABA therapy. Now, by the time we got there, they said a letter had come home saying that any child that had turned 5 on the queue doesn't get what we've been waiting for. Now, my child was 5.5.
Oh my God.
It was just time to go home. To be honest, I think because at this time, so now, this was, I think it was 2020. It was borderline of 4. It was about to turn 4. So we thought, yeah, we've accepted now. So even though we hadn't gotten the diagnosis, but you know, we had gone home, we had come back, we had seen kids grow differently. It was just obvious that whatever it is, even if it's not autism, let's get him help. We had to get him a therapy from Abuja, and we were working with him remotely. I bless God for the day we took that decision. Wow. Now imagine I bring, so we got to Nigeria in 2023. My son was just about to turn 7. Imagine I bring a 7-year-old. Just imagine what a 7-year-old without any support would be. You'd be a nuisance by now. But today you can sit with us here and have intelligent conversation.
No, it talks.
Autism is not gone completely, you know, but it's crossed a lot of different milestones.
To improve.
Of course, even though the therapy was telepathy, it was virtual. It was amazing.
Wow. What, you couldn't get to where you were?
Of course.
Wow.
So, you know, it was going to a normal school. They assume inclusion. But to be honest, again, it's assumed. And a lot of damage was done on him. It was not included. He had a special room he was kept, and he was given
just him or other children with autism.
And he was given excessive screen time.
Excessive.
She can tell because, you know, excessive screen time, so much that today we still struggle with taking that face away from his lifestyle, his head, his memory.
Let's look at inclusion when you were in Sweden and inclusion here in Nigeria.
Yeah.
The difference. Which do you prefer? And how has the acceptance been in Nigeria?
I'm still here. If it's not accepted, I probably will be gone by now. Yeah. The plan wasn't to stay 3 years. But, you know, by the time you see results, you get what you expect. There's no point going back. Personal reason, anybody could choose to go back for whatever reason. So here's it. I come a lot more informed. The woman who was getting the diagnosis in 2020 isn't the same woman who got in here, you know. So the virtual therapy had helped a lot because I can't leave him with the therapist alone virtually. He's not the boy he is today. He was high on he was very hyper. And we had this high chair. I put him in and lock him up. And because he knows he can't get up by himself, he pulls the chair down and wiggles his way out of the chair. So it meant that I had to stay with him. And I got really informed from every therapy session. So literally it felt like he was having a round-the-clock session because the moment it was just an hour and a half. The moment he's gone, I start to use all the things I had learned. He obviously made me want to learn more. I had to take courses on it because it's for my child's advantage at the end of the day. I'm not a therapist. I don't have anything to do with learning or getting as informed as I am today. I'm a lawyer. I'm a project manager. So, you know, it obviously made me, you know, part myself in too many ways. And then, so it was going to that school. To me, I thought it was doing well I thought it was being included. So I won't say do well. I thought it was being included, but unfortunately, for every holiday we had, it was 10 steps ahead. And for every time we went back to school, it was several steps backward.
Okay, let me quickly come back to Dr. Adeni. Doctor, do we have other diseases that comes with autism? Just the way, I don't know, some other diseases, you know, have associates ailments or disorders. Do you have any?
Yes, we do. So we call them comorbidities. They are, so they come in different forms with autism. Top on the list is hyperactivity. So many of them.
Is it a disorder?
Yes, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. When they cannot sit still, they are just all over the place. They are impulsive. They can't take instructions. You know, when you're talking to them, they are doing something else. They can't stay to finish a task, so they are moving from one task rapidly to another one. Even when they are playing with toys, they're just touching and dropping and picking another one. So it's common among them, and it's one comorbidity that can slow down their response to therapy, because you need a child who is calm, who is attentive to be able to take in whatever you're doing. So one of it is hyperactivity. Some of them might have sleep disorders. They just will not sleep, you know. Of course, when they are not sleeping, every other person is not sleeping because you can't leave them to themselves. So there's either they are just walking around the house or they are doing one thing or the other. They might not sleep properly. So that can be a major problem with them. Some of them might have epilepsy. They might have seizure disorders.
Really?
Yes. So they might have like repeated episodes of seizures or convulsions, as we call it. And then they might have a lot of GI, the gastrointestinal tract problems like feeding. Quite a number of them are very picky with what they will eat. So families struggle to feed them. You are doing everything to feed a child and is not interested in everything that you do. So some of them have just maybe 2 or 3 food that they eat. And then the parents will go around. And that could be very stressful for parents. They go around it, Some actually has to be in a particular consistency or a particular color or, they just have different.
Like a routine.
Yeah, like a routine. That's what they do. And because you want them to take adequate nutrients, you're worried you are not having enough fruits, you are not taking enough, it's just so difficult and stressful for families. So these are some of the disorders that they might have. The learning, so again, to learn, because they have their uniqueness in terms of understanding and learning. Some of them might come across as being slow in terms of learning. But if they are lucky and they find someone who understands, who is able to teach them the way they will learn, they can actually learn very well. In fact, some of them are very brilliant when it comes, maybe when it comes to figures or when it comes to, understanding concepts. You'll be amazed at how much they can do. Yeah. But then it requires that somebody understands and is able to pick that. So you can't just sit them down like you sit down with a normal child, a regular developing child, and say, this is how to teach, or you stand on the board and you're teaching. You have to have found what works for them, and that's how it is. So they appear to have some degree of intellectual disability. So these are some of the disorders that you find in them.
All right. I want to ask, let's come to societal and family acceptance of this amazing boy. Tell us, you were not in the country when you gave birth, and when all of this started. How did your family members take it? What kind of support did you get? And when you eventually came home to actually get full support, did you get it? Were there disappointments along the way?
So I think societal acceptance is what you make of it. You have the liberty to choose your society, your village, and so it's up to you. Giving birth, again, it doesn't have a face. So for the first 1.5 years, it wasn't anything anyone needed to raise an alarm for and say, oh, I have a child with disability. We're just raising a normal child. Pictures showed that everything was fine. Nothing was wrong, until, that phase came. And to be honest, I think is how well you educate your people. They don't know it too. They've obviously not heard about it. My brother would say that if not for you, I wouldn't have this knowledge. So I first had to equip myself to be able to educate them. So I won't tell you that, family stretch out their hands and they were like, oh, welcome home, or welcome to the family. So it was new for them too. It took a lot of understanding, getting used to, and understanding how best to come through for you. And eventually, I think it's been great being at home. Wow. It's been amazing. I won't trade it for anything. I rather, on the other hand, wish I'd come home that year, that we had stayed back that year. Because, to be honest, every year you wait is a waste. Wow. Yeah. So people at home have been amazing. We needed to educate them. They understand the journey, and they are walking the journey smoothly with him.
Looking at those years, you said you had to wait for diagnosis, for the AB therapy.
ABA, yes.
ABA therapy. Since you've been in Nigeria, have you had a smooth medical experience unlike what you had? Do you have to wait for a long time because a lot of children are also waiting to see a doctor?
You don't go to UCH today. The most a week, you get diagnosed and then you get the result. Yeah. A whole year is a long time. it's a big, now don't forget that I said that I had lived in denial for a whole year. Honestly, if I had someone tell me that it would take a whole year for diagnosis, maybe I would have put in for the diagnosis. I'm still believing in that denial. Let that denial face be my wait face, you know. So Nigeria is, honestly, we don't appreciate what we have. They say you don't understand what you have until you lose it, right? Yeah. So that's a typical explanation for it. You get to go to ECH, get your child diagnosed. A week at the most, you get your diagnosis, and you're ready to set yourself on the journey.
Okay, let me come back to you again. Let's look at your career as a mother, as a wife. How have you been able
to juggle it all together?
Standing. Because I'm telling you, you're standing, and I give it to you. Yes, you've told us how it went, you know, the journey of 10 years in just few lines. But trust me, you're a strong woman. Tell us, how were you able to manage? How, you know, you've not even told us how your husband handled it, you know, and all of that. So tell us.
So for me, so I moved abroad. I'd studied law from the University of Lagos. I'd worked for about 4 years before I moved, and I couldn't continue with being a lawyer because it's a non-English speaking country. The journey to study law, again, first study the language to the point where you can go to school and study law in the language. Yeah, so it was a hassle, and tech is the new normal, right? So somehow I found myself in tech. And for the last years, I'd worked as a technical project manager for a leading telecoms company. And then getting to get the diagnosis meant a lot. Thanks for COVID. Work from home started during COVID, which meant that I could homeschool him. So what I did differently during that phase was I let him go to school for 3 days, and then I homeschooled him for 2 days. So I had lots of different things planned for my meeting sessions and for the free time I had with him. So that worked. And then, to be honest, nobody's strong. Nothing prepares you for this journey. You need to build that strength for yourself because nobody's going to do it for you. It's abroad. Nobody has time. They don't even have time for their own children, let alone having to fit your child into it. It's like someone coming to me and say, oh, please help me take care of my child while I'm doing this and that. It can't work. The time isn't there. Even though I don't do 2 jobs, I've got 2 boys. The boys are jobs on their own. Exactly. So now, for the acceptance of his dad, generally men come to acceptance late.
Later, much later.
Exactly. Much later. Even when they say on the surface that I've accepted, trust me, it's a long phase of acceptance. Because to be honest, he will try you. There was a phase called poop smearing. He would poo, and then because so we're trying to get to the potty training stage, and it was hard. We quit at many times, tried, stopped. He wasn't completely potty trained until 5. And within that phase, there was a time where he'd take the poop out of his body and smear it around everything that was available, including his dad's laptop. So I had gone to work that day, and I was coming back. I'd used the bell. He was coming to open the door for me. He had just finished cleaning up the mess, and so his body was wet, and he slipped on the stairs and hit his back very hard on the stairs. And I could read his face like, what the hell are we doing here? So he will try you. It's a journey that, again, nothing prepares you for. So you can't come in and say, oh, your child is diagnosed with autism. Well, accept that's not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's still a big deal. It will continue to be a big deal. Again, I say he's doing very well, is this, is that, but he has his face. He has times when he's unable to communicate his exact needs and he's upset. He's hungry.
All right, I think we should give you a moment there to catch your breath, and then while we go to Dr. Idowu. Earlier when Dr. Adeni, I beg your pardon. Earlier when Mrs. Idowu was, talking about the timing, the years they had to wait for diagnosis, the therapy session, and because of the number of children on the queue, on the spectrum. I know while for a long time, autism is just, is more like something that is just an awareness that is just, coming to our notice. It wasn't like that. Even while I was growing up, there was nothing like autism. I know we used to see Down syndrome very scarcely. It wasn't also something very common. But what exactly is the reason why we are having so many children on the spectrum, especially between the last, I think, 7
About
years,
10 years.
10 years till now? We have so many children on the spectrum, so many diagnoses. What exactly is the cause, is the reason?
All right, so autism has been here all the while. Of course, there was a time we thought it's mostly the Western problem, children from Africa are not likely to have. But we realized that it was because there were no expertise, we're not diagnosing those people that were affected at those times. Because now I have 20-something-year-old, 30-something-year-old people with autism under my care. So that means they've been there all the while. So it is, I think right now, because we have a lot of awareness, I mean, we still have a lot to do, but then there's so much more that we've achieved over the last 10 years in terms of awareness. So people are coming out with their children for diagnosis. And I'm really very proud to say we make diagnosis at 18 months, 2 years now. Okay. And, I'm a consultant in usage, so I work with children. I'm in charge of the unit that takes care of children with autism. So we diagnose at 18 months, at 2 years, 2.5, unlike before when it would be about 9 years, 10 years before we see them. So we are making lots of diagnoses because people are coming out. I mean, there are some other schools of thoughts about why we have more. Some actually say maybe there's an actual increase in the number of children who have autism for different reasons. One of the problems that we are thinking might maybe not cause, but worsen some of the symptoms is the use of the screen for children. Now children as early as they can hold things, even if they can hold, they put the things on the stand in front of them at 3-4 months so that parents can walk, and they are on the screen for several hours of the day. So we think that that's one of the problems that is making either responsible or making the children to have a lot of very severe symptoms. Wow. So some of those things are why we think they are. And the fact that, like Mrs. Idowu said, on the average, every week, maybe like 3 calls from the US, from the UK, from Australia, wanting me to assess their child. And I can see that quite a number of them are coming back also. Some of them might not come back fully. They bring the child here to stay with grandma or with an auntie or with somebody, and then they go back because of the problem that Mrs. Joe had highlighted. It's not just in Sweden, it is across the globe. Wow. And we need to appreciate what we have here. You can walk in, like you said, the maximum will say, come back next week or 2 weeks, you will get the diagnosis. And the diagnosis is the same. The process is the same. And of course, healthcare is way cheaper than in most places. So you can just have a few thousand and then you say, okay, I need diagnosis. In fact, sometimes in UCH, you just need to pay the general consultation fee. Nobody's charging you for any other thing. So people can come out and have the diagnosis. And then right now, we also have quite a lot of interventions, therapy centers, people who can, or places where children can have proper care when they have diagnosis. I mean, it might not be as tech as what you have in the US or in the UK, but then the content or the process or whatever we're doing is at par with what is expected. So all those things are what will make the explanation. So parents are encouraged, families are encouraged to come out and have their child diagnosed. And also because there's a whole lot of acceptance. In the past, they want to hide because they don't know how people is going to react. But now, like you are doing, people are listening and they know, okay, there's something that's called autism, we understand. So that's some of the reasons why it is.
Okay, we might just need to take a break. Okay. Let's go on a break. When we come back, of course, we'll go to other parts of the conversation. Do stay tuned. We'll be back. back. It's still Saturday special. Don't forget, we've been discussing about autism, addressing inclusivity and care needed. Of course, our guests in the studio, and they've been doing justice to the conversation. So touching. Of course, Dr. Yetunde Adeni, who is a director at the Center for Development, Learning and Care. Thank you for, all the good work you're doing to help with children with special needs. Also, we have in the studio a parent of a child with autism, Mrs. Mubolaji Ido. Thank you very much for being a strong mom.
Thank you.
I honestly appreciate you and the way you have, shared your experience. It's quite touching, but I tell you, a lot of people have learned something from it. Okay, so for me,
I want to talk about schools.
Yeah.
When we talk of inclusion of children living with autism, sometimes some of our teachers do not even understand when they see signs of a child with autism. And just like she said, it was a teacher that pointed out to her initially, do we have, when we talk of inclusion, I think we should talk of awareness first before talking of inclusion. How aware are schools in Nigeria talking of autism? Do teachers really understand what to look out for? Or when they see signs, do they understand what it really means when a child is hyper in class, when a child have a rigid routine, when a child doesn't want to relate with other children? Do we see teachers with that much high understanding in Nigeria?
So the answer is yes and no. We have a few schools who are really on top of their games. They know when a child is not doing well. Some actually have provisions for support for children who have difficulties, different kinds of difficulties. But I can tell you that majority of schools and teachers do not know. And, I thought it was actually better until about a month ago. So we as part of the month, what we wanted to do for the month at our center, we invited schools. We went out to invite schools to say, send 2 teachers to our center. We wanted to have a training on just basic understanding how to identify what you can do, to have a link to say, oh, we need you to help us, this, So we went to schools. We went to about 20 schools. And out of the 20 schools, 12 outrightly said no, that they do not want to come. For majority, the reasons were, one of the most important, the reason that is common to most of them is that they do not want the children, what the children we have taken care of, what they have to be transferred to them, and then they will transfer to the other children in their school. So it was really very sad for me because I thought, oh, okay, we're going to schools should accept, they should just be excited. No, they were not. They just felt, in fact, some said, what all this thing that we're doing is the children just need prayers. That we just, that's what we need.
Real deliverance.
Yeah.
So many schools, and I'm very sure if you go to those schools, we have children on the spectrum in classrooms. So I began to wonder what exactly would they be doing? How are they handling those children who have those difficulties? So we still have like a lot to do. But like I said, there are schools. So I mean, sometimes I need to make recommendations and say, I know that schools, because I'm in touch with a lot of schools in Ibadan, I know quite a number of schools are doing what they're supposed to do. They're on top of their games, they're interested. Even if they don't have the capacity, they are willing, okay, for people like us to come, support them and all that. So it is, I mean, I'm hoping that in the next few years, things will get better with more awareness, we're talking, we're not giving up and all that, but we still have a whole lot to do.
Let me quickly come to the issue of legislation.
Before you talk about legislation, okay. I want to talk still on school, but I want to take it to Mrs. Idowu. I know you mentioned when your child was still in Sweden, he was secluded, let me use that word, given a special room, just he alone. Would you want to compare that with now that he's in Nigeria? What's he like when he's in school? Does he relate well with other children? Is he accepted in his school? Do you also see other children on the spectrum in his school who he relates better with?
So I've touched on different schools. And one amazing thing about Nigeria is the opportunity or the possibility to be able to choose a school for your child. Let me briefly digress. In Sweden, you don't have the flexibility where you wake up and say, oh, I'm not going to school A again. I want to change my child to school B. There's a queue system. So for any school you want to go to, you have to queue. And then, yes, so when it's your turn. So I wanted my child to go to an English school. Yeah. He's been on the queue for that English school since the day he was born. And he still doesn't have admission yet. I was supposed to be renewing the admission every year. I stopped renewing last year because I knew I wasn't interested anymore. But just to give you, an idea of what it looks like. So you can't wake up and say, oh, school A has messed up, what I've worked on so far. I don't want to go here anymore. I wake up one day and then I drive around and I say, oh, that's the school I want to go to. No, it doesn't work that way. So that's the opportunity or the flexibility you get in Nigeria, and it's amazing to have that. So because of that, I've touched on different schools. Again, like Dr. Dini had said, schools they obviously lack a good knowledge. They have a surface knowledge, which is why a good number of schools are taking kids on the spectrum, but they're not thoroughly giving them what is required of them. So it means that they don't have a deep knowledge of what is expected. So for me, currently, he goes to an amazing school. He's in grade 3. He does what is expected of him in class. Sometimes he needs support just to redirect him back to, what it is. If a fly goes around and he's writing on the board, he literally follows the fly. Exactly. And he may not come back except you say, continue your work. And when he gets redirections here and there, he goes back, which means that over time, little distractions like that would be faded off. So he copes well in class. He loves to read. So if you tell him read for the entire class, I'm sure he'll be very excited to do things like that. So again, he hasn't come to the age level of social interaction. Okay. So he still lacks the ability to initiate a play. So let's assume he walks into a class and his classmates are just doing whatever, and then he walks and says, oh guys, let's go do police and thief or something. No, it's not there yet, and which is understandable, but he's coming to a place where he can get into an existing play and not want to redirect it in his own way, like taking all the things they're playing with and he wants to play with it in his own way. No, he has a younger brother, and he often has friends who comes to the house or cousins who comes for play dates, and he's learning to play together with them. Yes, he goes to church. He's in children's church. Children's church has provisions for kids on the spectrum and all of that. So I don't shy away from bringing him to social gathering, which obviously has helped him a lot.
Thank you so much.
So the issue of legislation I wanted to raise. Doctor, I think there's a need to work with the Agency for Persons with Special Need in your state to have a legislation for schools, still coming back to schools. If you can't have 2 days or 1 day in the week to bring an expert to attend to children with special needs, autism, then don't take them. Maybe a policy in the state, or push from the national, because it goes a long way. For instance, look at how Mrs. Idewu has been able to help by way of, during COVID-19, having 2 days for him. And if you look at how she had moved, it has really helped. Our attention has, helped the boy's development. So don't you think that it's necessary for us to begin to look at policy, change, legislation to help these children? Because, if she can say her son is an amazing boy, then it tells me that every child with autism is amazing. She also said he's intelligent. She just said that he can read.
He loves to read.
So it means that every child, in every disability, we can bring up their abilities.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. So, I think you're just stating the obvious, that there's a need. So, in the United Nations has a document on the rights of persons with disabilities. Nigeria is a signatory to that document. I mean, we've signed, we said, okay, we will do it. But you know, that's just signing. Implementation is always the problem. Now, in Oyo State, I'm quite close to the ministry that is in charge of special schools, the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Inclusion. And, you know, I think what we need now, because they are aware, you know, sometimes we invite them for programs, we have discussions. In fact, there is an association of all the proprietors and proprietaries of special schools, and we meet right there at the secretariat. So the knowledge is there. It's the implementation that is the problem. And I think that is something that we are pushing for, and of course I'm hoping that at some point parents will be at the forefront, because in most countries where policies have changed, where things have moved in terms of law, it's the parents, the caregiver. They listen to them more because they are the warriors. You know, they're the ones in the middle of the war. We are just supporting. So I'm hoping that they can push this really strong, you know, so that there will be very clear rules about what to do with schools. Apart from just having somebody coming in for support, special education, special needs should be built within this. It should be part of the process of enrolling, or part of having given a school a go-ahead to say you can start this school. Before you can register, you must have a solid special needs support in a way that any child within the school will be attended, will be catered for. No child is left behind. And it's not expensive. It's not something that is difficult. It just needs people or the government to understand, to say this thing is necessary. So as simple as having just a single special need teacher, we have a school that is producing special teachers at Oyo, the Special College of Education at Oyo. And when these people finish, what they do is they go teach in regular schools. They go teach, or they even go do some other things. If we can absorb them into some of these schools, and it's a regulation that if you have a school, you must have a special teacher within the school. And that is just like you are building in a system that can work. It's not just because, oh, okay, I have a child. Apart from children with autism, there are some children that are just struggling with learning. Yeah. You know, they can't learn the same pace, so they need somebody to come and say, this is what you need. They develop a plan for them. As simple as that will make a whole lot of difference.
Okay, let me also ask you, are you also looking at partnership with relevant stakeholders? Sometimes, I stand to be corrected, some of the movies we watch do not give us correct information. Let's look at the spiritual part. You see a child or someone with special need or disability, and they say the person needs deliverance. And the movie will share with you how deliverance brought you out. So somebody, no, honestly, and somebody who happens to, you know, be in such condition would be chasing deliverance and would not know. So don't you think that there are stakeholders?
Absolutely, religious leaders.
Yes, a lot of stakeholders that we need to hold down to ensure that we help children with autism.
All right. So you know, all these things, when the effort is small, you might not see the impact so quickly. We also work with religious organizations. We go to churches to give awareness talk and all that. But like I said, it's just so tiny, you know, because we're not so many that is doing that. And I was very happy when Mrs. Dowu mentioned that the church that she attends has a provision for children with, I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. You know, because I've seen families who have stopped going to church because they have a child on the spectrum and they couldn't cope, you know. So you can imagine you have a child on the spectrum, you are there by yourself, the child is all over the place. You know, at some point you just feel there's no need, because there's no way I will be able to listen to anything, and then I'm embarrassed. The child is just everywhere. If there are provisions, there will be a way to cater for them, and that will only come with and understanding that there is a need. So we will continue to do more to engage religious leaders, community leaders, at different levels, to say that these things are real. Families are going through this, they need support. Yeah. And you can be doing all the prayers and all the fasting, it's fine, We are not saying don't do those things, but let the student also have opportunity of medical attention. When everything is combined, then you see amazing results. Yes.
Let me quickly ask Mrs. Ido. Mrs. Ido, if you look at it, is it cheap? No, that's the truth, because someone listening or watching us from home will say, I don't have the money to, if I did this. And maybe that's why a lot of people abandon their children with autism. So tell us, is it expensive to take care of such a child? Or you don't even have to be rich, just your own ability to, whatever you have, you can give such a child. Because you talked about their feeding. It's certain routine. Yeah. They're learning certain routine. I'm not even sure if you wear clothes for a child with autism and he doesn't like that clothes, you say no.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Imagine. So these are issues that we need to
for children. You also have to use diaper for till like 5, 6, 7
for some of them.
Yeah, for some of them.
No, that some of them will not wear any clothes that will go through their head.
Because
it has to be
something of a shirt.
Buttoned.
Wow.
And then even inside the fabric, certain texture of the fabric doesn't suit well. Exactly. So yeah. Well, is it cheap? Should I ask you? Honestly, I think it's worth every penny you spend. Because so I know people who only has that child on the spectrum and they keep at it because there's the fear of, if I have another one, will the other one be autistic? It's a possibility. Even I know someone who's got 3 kids on the spectrum.
Ooh.
And I know a dear family member who also has 2 kids on the spectrum.
Wow.
I have a second who is not on the spectrum. So, and I also know other people who's got second and third who are not on the spectrum. But don't let me not lie to you. The fear was there too. So it was uncertain, especially because you can't detect from ultrasound. You're not sure what to expect. So it's a journey of,
uncertainty.
Exactly. Very uncertain. So it's not cheap. Schools generally aren't cheap, especially because, schools aren't cheap. And then consider that you need to get an extra support for your child. There's the need to have a therapy come to school or come to the house, or both of them. And it depends on how much support your child needs. It may be more than a speech therapist. You may also need behavioral and occupational. And for me, I detected early my son loves music. So there's a less music tutor that comes to the house. So it depends on what part of your child's strength you think you want to work on and improve on. So my son loves art. He loves to draw a lot. I'm considering getting him a support for an art teacher that comes to the house to support him. So support is endless. It depends on what you foresee your child being in future. You may just want to, just keep, and then keep the child in the house and say, I'm a be me to my rock boy. I know someone who had said that, and they really did get another child thinking that, but no child is going to rock boily and it's going to do amazingly well. And we're going to put every effort that it takes to get him to that spot. And, be that doctor, be that professor. We call him a PhD holder in the house because I'm definitely sure he's going to get it. Everyone who knows him knows. Wherever he's going to, he carries a book like this. We went to Legoland in Denmark, and who goes to Legoland with books? My son had books. We went for dinner recently. And so I picked them up at home. They got into the car and I said, so I didn't see what he had with him. When I parked and opened the door for him, I said, that's a lot of book. He said, oh, just 15. He counted it in front of me. I made a video of him. He counted it and it was 15. He said, just 15. I said, can we drop them? He said, no. And it looked like we were going to write an assignment inside the restaurant. I had to carry it for him at some point. He knew what he was doing. Before the food got ready, he was reading. So now I know that's his strength. I will do everything within my means to bring that strength, come to life.
So no penny is a waste.
No penny is a waste.
Since you've been in Nigeria, or generally based on your understanding of autism, have you had personal intervention where you probably went to a social gathering and you saw a child you suspect is on the spectrum, and you probably, call the attention of the parents and say, can you take this child for diagnosis? Have you had personal intervention like that?
So first, this journey led me to create something called Kidley Space.
Okay.
It's an inclusive center for children with special need. So this journey is so passionate to me that something had to come out of it. That's one. And I did it because of parents who shy away from taking their children to social gatherings. Because I took my son swimming one day. This was the early years when we had just gotten in, and they love to swim, so both of them were there. And I told the lifeguard there that he's on the spectrum. He had this look at me, and I knew he didn't understand. I said he has autism. He still had the same look. And I said, go Nama. You can't say that's a layman's language. He will understand that. So let me cry it out so that he can help me. Rather than, he loves to dive. Everyone who knows him he won't dive in the shallow end. He goes to the deep end. Now, any child that dives in the deep end is assumed that the child knows what they're doing. What if I leave him and the guy also leaves him thinking that it's normal, and then he drowns? So I don't shy away from screaming out what is wrong with him. So, after I made sure that the lifeguard understood what we were talking about, then I sat down. And then these two mom had come to meet me and said, sorry, you said something. Can we talk to you? I said, oh, sure, talk to me. And then, they were literally whispering. I said, speak up, auntie, it's just you and I. What's going on? They've got kids on the spectrum. Both of them, that's how they connected. But these kids don't go out. So they've got 2 other kids each. And whoever would, not mind that day, they would put the 2 kids on the spectrum in their house with the minders. And then they go out. They've never had to go out. They don't even go to schools. So now, of course, we want people like that, because you as a mom, there's already a lot of responsibilities for you. Now, having to add that, we don't want your social life to die off. We want you to be able to say, oh, my friend has a wedding, my friend has a birthday, I'm going to go. I'm not going to be deterred because I have a child on the spectrum. So that's the idea for the space. Now, the real question is, have I had time? Have I had the possibility of intervening? Trust me, parents don't want to hear it. We are the problem of ourselves. Parents don't want. I've had that opportunity back home in Sweden. I'd gone to an open playground, and I could see the child. In fact, there were 2 of them. And the woman was so excited to talk. I said, oh, I have a child on the spectrum too. And she was like, oh, yeah. So theirs is on the very high spectrum. Yeah. They can't sleep without drugs. They can't even eat except they use certain drugs to boost their appetite and all that. So it's really complicated. But here in Nigeria, you see a parent who's child, the parent is already telling you, there's nothing wrong with that. So, yeah, we really need to. Of course, we've had a lot of awareness. We're still having it, but we're still not aware.
Doctor, when we have parents who do not take their children out, like Mrs. Idows says, she takes her son out every time. He has social gatherings, even though he might not really relate well with other children. He also goes to church. But when we have parents who lock their children up in the house, they do not have interaction. They do not even see the outside world other than the 4 corners of their house. Does it also affect their mental development for people on that spectrum?
Absolutely, yes. Because we are social beings, Part of our... So one of the domains of development is the social, emotional development, or domain. And the way that domain develops is to interact with people at different levels, our siblings, our families, and then we step out to schools and then to other bigger social gatherings. So it is definitely going to affect the child who is being kept at home. So sometimes because we are very positive people, we confess positively. We don't want to say, my child has this and that. And I think that's one of the problems, to say, why will I say that my child is not normal or that is not developing well? It takes some other level of understanding and of acceptance to be able to say that the way Mrs. Idowu is saying. So because of that, those parents would rather want the children to be at home. And then because of some other family dynamics, there are some marriages that are at very they are distressed because of that particular child.
Condition of the child.
So people are just trying to be careful. The mother is saying, I don't want, if I'm doing too much, that means I've accepted that this child has a problem. And then the husband has already said, don't say anything about my child again. There's nothing wrong with him. Just let him be. And I have so many cases like that. And so there are a whole lot of factors that are responsible for why people don't bring out their child who has autism, apart from the general misconception, the fact that many people do not understand what it is. And they're just waiting and hoping that one day will wake up and say, what's in sorrow? Everything is fine.
And stigmatization too.
And stigmatization from the society.
Wow. Well, as we try to wrap up, maybe just one word from you both to advise the society, government, parents. Just one word, one line.
All right, so I'll say that, we've come a long way when it comes to autism. We've achieved a lot in terms of awareness, in terms of provision of care for them. I mean, in the last 10 years, we've done quite a lot, as a community. And there's still so much that we need to do. But I just want to encourage, parents and families that are suspecting or they have children who are on the spectrum, that there is hope. There is so much that can be done to improve the lives of these children, even the lives of the families. Because when the children are better, the parents, everybody is also, they're able to do more for themselves. So they should come out. Diagnosis, now it's easier to get diagnosis. And then we've heard today that some people will say, I want to take my child to the UK. I want to use UCS, I want to go. I said, okay, if that's what you want to do, go ahead. In fact, every time I write recommendation letter and say, okay, you can go. But then they will call me back and say, this is not what we were expecting. My child is still waiting. It's still on the queue. So we are in Nigeria, and there are places where children can get diagnosed, where they can get care for. So families should be aware of that. And also for government, there's a lot that still needs to be done. Schools are like the easiest way to reach these children because they leave their homes and they go to school. And it's like a collective place where they can get education, they can get social interaction, they can get exposed to a lot of things. So we can meet those children within the school system. Even if we are not even supporting the families directly, which they should do, but then we can meet them within the school system.
I think it's important for you to let us know where people can go to, parents can go to get diagnosis for their children. Okay. Maybe government hospitals or government facilities.
So I would say, for instance, in Ibadan, there is a unit, like I said, I'm in charge of that unit, that is dedicated to caring for children on the spectrum and those who have other developmental disorders. So when they come to UCH, sometimes people think, I need to know somebody. You don't need to know people, really. There's a place we call the GOPD, General Outpatient Department, where you go to for those who are coming for the first time. So when you go there, they give you a letter. Usually that letter will take you to the units that you're supposed to go. So they will direct. So when you come to the unit, we can say, you can't see you today because we have specific days where we see new patients. Come these particular dates. And by the time that is happening, you're already on the journey to get the appropriate care for the child. So UCH in Ibadan is a sure way, apart from other private establishments. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's come to Mrs. Ido. Advice to mothers. I want you to advise mothers.
What about fathers?
No, let's advise mothers.
Well, I think the responsibility of raising a child rests a lot on mothers. So that's why we would leave fathers out on this journey. But then they'll take clues as we go on. Exactly. There's a lot to this. Let autism not define your child. There's a lot your child can become. It's a journey. No one says that that child will talk tomorrow, but what you invest in that child is what you would reap years from now. You're not going to be in the same spot 5 years from now. If you don't do anything, you're very much going to be grounded or even get worse. There's something that's called regression. Mm-hmm. So even if you do something today and you don't do tomorrow, that child is obviously going to regress. Consistency is key. Don't shy away from it. Honestly, it's the elephant in the room, and so what? It's just a diagnosis.
Thank you very much. And want to say that maybe we'll get to a point in this country where we'll have a day to showcase children with autism.
Amazing.
And see those of them that were being cared for and are doing amazing.
And also showcasing their skills.
Yeah.
What they can do.
It's very kind of yes. All right, we want to say a big thank you to our guest this morning. We have been discussing autism, addressing inclusivity, care needs. Thank you very much on behalf of our producers and crew members. I want to say a big thank you to Mrs. Mobola Jido, who is a parent of a child with autism and of course is doing well when it comes to advocacy and awareness on autism. Thank you very much for doing the great things that you're doing and for being a strong mom. Thank you very much. All right, also to Dr. Yetunde Adeni, a Director, Center for Development, Learning and Care. Thank you so very much. We appreciate what you're doing for children lacking development with disorders. We pray that God will continue to strengthen you.
Amen.
And give you all that you need.
Amen.
In Jesus' name. All right, we'll go on a break, and when we come back, it's going to be